Well, Prime Minister Modi has today in Shanghai made a very strong pitch for China to make in India. The Prime Minister saying to Chinese CEOs in Shanghai this morning that they can see the winds of change and that he would personally ensure that they are able to move forward with their investments in India. The question is whether this is actually going to take off on the ground. There are lots of good announcements that have been made. There are some 21 deals that were signed today that are worth about $22 billion. But at the end of the day, how does this move forward from here? Are we going to see more than announcements as far as the India-China economic relationship is concerned? And is there finally a level of trust that can help the two countries bridge the trust deficit as well? We have a terrific panel joining us on the program this evening. First with us tonight is Mr. Amitabh Kant, of course, or someone who's key in the Make in India campaign. What would you say is the big takeaway, Mr. Kant, from this visit?
I think the important thing to realize is that the present imbalance of trade is unsustainable in the long run. The Chinese growth is relatively slowing down. The Indian rate is accelerating. And, some very distinguished CEOs, the most distinguished CEOs of China met the Prime Minister. There was a great amount of energy, a huge amount of vibrancy, and I think they're looking at India extremely enthusiastically because China has created a very vast manufacturing capacity. They need to look at demand, and I think India provides that huge opportunity for demand. India provides that capacity for manufacturing there, catering to the domestic demand as well as exporting outside. So I think there are a whole lot of changes taking place in India. India is in the midst of some very radical changes in terms of ease of doing business. Our own attitude towards China in terms of welcoming them for manufacturing is far more open. The Prime Minister has announced the e-visa policy, and I think business visitors will find it extremely easy to come here. And at least most of the CEOs today, when I heard them, I think they were extremely interested, extremely excited. They were looking at possibility of getting into the India market. Actually, 7 of them already operate in India. And,
What are the difficulties? I mean, you're talking about the positives. What would you acknowledge are maybe the 2 or 3 biggest difficulties right now?
I think there are challenges because India's own attitude about attracting Chinese investment in India previously has been very ambivalent, and India needs to be absolutely clear that the Chinese manufacturers believe in size, they believe in scale, they believe in speed, 3 things in which the Prime Minister himself very strongly believe in. These are people who radically transformed manufacturing, and if India is to become a great manufacturing nation, it needs to work with some of the best companies in the world.
Is this a hint to the bureaucracy? You think there's still a kind of an old mindset about China?
No, I think the Prime Minister has made the bureaucracy push a lot of changes as far as ease of doing business is concerned. A number of major changes have taken place in India in recent times, and this would be a sustained effort to make India a very easy place to do business. India must become, as the Prime Minister said, the easiest place to do business.
Okay, well, let me then get a perspective actually from Chinese companies here in Shanghai and how they are looking at what the Prime Minister said and whether it is really going to be easy to do business. And we have Mr. Yao here from Huawei, one of course the most well-known telecom companies. And sir, what did you think of Mr. Modi's visit and what he said about the Make in India campaign, getting China on board? Do you think your company is going to find it any easier to do business?
Well, first of all, I have to say that we are extremely interested and extremely excited about the latest development pushed by the top leadership of 2 countries. And as China-originated multinational companies that has been operating in India for many years, and we're extremely, happy to see the development. Now, I think that the way for move forward, 3 factors seems to me are very important. One is for all of us to talk more and even act more, even more. Secondly, it's also time for all of us to act in the same direction, with the same action, in the sense that all levels of government from both sides, business communities, media, everyone should have the same mindset. It's better to have that kind of direction and the same action. The third point is that after everything every effort is made by government, we also need to remind all of us, how to go back to the business basics and the market basics, in the sense that any business has to be done when it makes business sense.
So telecom companies, Chinese telecom companies in particular, have had quite a challenging time in India. Do you see, any change on that front? What would you like to see change on that front?
Well, we do see a lot of changes under the new government, leadership of a new government, and also the market situation also improved, and we are confident in that in the future.
Well, we have Mr. James Dong of Alibaba here, of course, a company that is attracting a lot of attention worldwide. What would you say are still the biggest difficulties? The issue of e-visas came up and it was announced for tourists. But do you think that Chinese businesses are still finding it very difficult to come to India and the whole visa process?
Well, I think things certainly have been improving, right? And especially with the Prime Minister's visit, a lot of MOUs, things are getting moving. I think, from China-India bilateral business perspective, I just want to add one more angle, given all said by the panelists. I think SME could be the focus, right? Everyone is looking at China, export is so huge, right? A lot of huge companies. But when you look back 20 years, 30 years, right, they all started from a very small scale, SMEs. And, a lot of e-commerce platforms created ecosystem jointly with financing, logistics, import-export partners to have this ecosystem to help all these Chinese SMEs. So since the day one Alibaba established, we have this vision to make it easy to do business everywhere in the world, right? So it's been 16 years. We certainly helped a lot of Chinese SMEs. Now actually we also have our presence in India. We have 4 offices.
How excited are you about India?
Well, I'm very, very excited. I think, India certainly is one of the very important markets, right? Now, we already been there for quite a few years. We have successfully, created this B2B e-commerce model there. It's proven to be working. Now, actually we just signed MOU with CII, a very strong local partner who can help us, access to the local community even better, faster, and also, help us do the training, so on and so forth, right? We are very confident to replicate the success of the pilots that we did on our own, but do it together with our partners in India.
Well, one of course, perhaps the biggest issue many would say on this trip was the issue of the trade deficit and how to deal with that. And there is a task force that has been set up, a special task force to look at various economic issues between the two countries. And in particular, it is going to look at the trade deficit. And we have Mr. Sumit Mazumdar here with us. So, one of the criticisms, actually, if one had one of this particular task force, is that there has been a committee before to look at these issues. Why do you think this will be different?
We've moved ahead, okay? And there's recognition on both sides, on India's side and China's side, that this trade deficit is not sustainable. If we today have between the two of us, we have the largest section of the population. So it's important that both of us move forward. And China recognizes that this sort of a one-sided arithmetic is just not going to be good for either one. So there's recognition that this is going to happen. So as long as both the countries recognize this, obviously the task force that has been set up will be more effective, certainly. I think it's important to also acknowledge that exports have been going down. Indian exports to China in the recent years have actually been going down. But we hope this is going to change with all the contracts that are being signed, that have been signed during the President of China's visit last year, and of course yesterday and today. So we expect that will shift gears quite a bit. But you made an observation earlier, and which I think is very important, is the lack of trust. Before anything to move right and anything to move forward, whatever whether it be political, economic, or whatever, the lack of trust has to be really overcome.
You still think there is a trust deficit?
There is a trust deficit, and it's very important that the two countries trust themselves. And this of course obviously begins at the top, and you can see signs that there is a lot of friendship and trust amongst the leadership of the two countries. So I believe that it starts at the top and then it comes down.
Interesting what you say on that issue of the trust deficit. And we have Mr. James Zahn here with us, who's with the Tata Group here in China. As somebody, as a Chinese citizen working for an Indian company, how do you look at this issue of the trust deficit? I mean, do you believe that we need to move forward politically in order to really have a healthy economic relationship?
I think the political relationship is a pretty healthy, despite there are differences, but it's very healthy. We need to move more on the people exchange, and we should make travel to each other's country much easier, and the experience much more pleasant.
It's very difficult to get direct flights from India to China.
It is
Even
very
today.
tiring, and it's the reason being probably the airlines said that there's not enough demand, so they cannot provide enough flights. But why there's not enough demand? People just the two countries are next to each other. We should make the people exchange very easy and very pleasant, and I know they are desired from both sides. It just people are busy. People tend to do the easier things. If you travel to Vietnam or Malaysia or other places easier, people would pick an easier place to go.
You know, one of the other one of the things one picks up here from Chinese companies also is, I'll ask James Dong about this, is that you know, announcements are made and there's a sense that things move very slowly in India, and of course Amitabh Kant will argue that no, that's changing, but that things are not followed through quickly enough. Would you be able to give us some perspective on why that feeling is there?
Actually, I couldn't comment like a few years back because, you know, Alibaba is a relatively young company, right? But for us, I think we are fine, especially this time, you know, with this MOU signed momentum. And I think, you know, if you look a few years back, at that time, maybe it's just not ready. Like, you know, we have this e-commerce platform, but back then we didn't have strong presence in India yet, but now we have, and now we have strong local partners, right? It's time to do something. And, you know, with this, this time Prime Minister just came with this momentum. I think, you know, if you look at the other governments like Malaysia, sometimes the government will provide incentive for the local companies to do to go e-commerce, right? And then also this.
Are you looking for something similar? Would you say that would send a sign?
Well, I mean, this is something, you know, it's a reference, right? It's a success stories in the neighboring countries in Southeast Asia, and also with this momentum, I mean, the local partners, very strong players like CII, right, can work with us. You know, it's a great momentum to create this ecosystem, and then have a bunch of people playing together to serve the. I was talking about SME, right? To serve the SMEs, to help them grow bigger.
Okay, but you know, on this issue of Mr. Pawan Goenka will bring you in on this issue of implementation. One of the things that has been observed in recent months after the president of China came to India, there was the big announcement on the industrial parks and a very comprehensive sort of economic roadmap. And a feeling that on the ground things just really haven't moved. And of course, you can't set up an industrial park in 6 months. But do you get a sense that there's a sense of frustration that it needs to go a little faster?
Sense of frustration probably is an overstatement, but there is a concern that things do need to move a little faster. And I think what needs to be done is to move from a macro level to a micro level, where very specific targeted interventions have to be done on which companies should be setting up what kind of manufacturing plant or infrastructure, where and for what reason. And if you go targeted like that, I think we can make small steps, but steps that would be very concrete, and those small steps will add up to something large. So that's what I would look at. Let's identify which are the companies in China where for whom it will make sense to bring in investment in India, and it will make sense for India to have that investment coming.
But you get a sense of impatience from them.
There is a little bit of that sense, yes, there is, not just in terms of China and India, but overall. But I think things are moving in the right direction. I would have to say that, and I think perhaps it may be a little bit too much to expect that in 12 months everything would change completely. We have to look at all the steps being taken. We have to look at what are the policy decisions being made, what is the effort being put in, and I cannot fault for the overall direction that is coming in. And I'm pretty happy with that, and I think it's just.
It's a beginning.
I think it's just a matter of time before we start seeing results.
Let me turn this political and make this fun, Mr. Banerjee. You know, we are here recording this program on the 16th of May, exactly 1 year after Mr. Modi was elected. How would you rate, on a scale of 1 to 10, the economy?
I'm not going to attempt rating, and I think,
dear.
not at all, not attempt rating. I think we are moving in a direction, as Dr. Goenka was mentioning, and I think we are moving in the right direction as far as, you see, look at the macroeconomic policy changes that were required in the country. That has been very well established. There are several other areas where we needed to focus on, for instance, manufacturing and the ease of doing business. I think we have come a long way on those fronts. Coming to China, we were talking about this infrastructure, large infrastructure.
But before that, that's the good stuff.
Yeah.
What's the bad stuff? What's the stuff that you'd like to see change?
No, always, however much you do, you will always desire to have something much more. So the issue now at hand is, how do you really percolate this down absolutely to the grassroots level? That demands a lot of change. That demands a lot of mindset change. And the mindset change is not only just in terms of the government. The mindset change also comes in when we talk about industry, and everybody else needs to be included in that. So here, what's happening? You're seeing states responding. You're seeing today a lot of the action shifting to the states, and rightly so, and good. Some of the states are early movers. The other states are laggards. So they will have to move, do much more to really.
So you think that maybe this provincial forum is a good idea?
It's indeed very important. It's very important to go through and for as we are in China, to talk about how do we connect provinces to states, to see state chief ministers coming in, states coming in, to say that yes, we need your investments. Yes, we can really work with you. We can have our states, the corporates from those states coming and exploring opportunities in China is the right way to go.
Well, interesting. Sorry I threw that googly at you. I don't know why you got chosen for that, but let me ask Mr. Rangarajan Velamore, who's the CEO of Infosys here in China, and someone who's had an old hand, as a sense, here in Shanghai. How have you seen the business relationship or the trust between the two countries change over the years? Do you think we understand each other better today, or there's still a long way to go?
I think there's a progress. There are two changes that I've seen in the last 8 years that I've lived in China. Number one, the Chinese direct investments in India has increased significantly. This shows that first, Chinese are looking seriously about Indian market. Number two, the exchange between China and India at the political level has also increased significantly. These two are the indicators that I believe are taking this relationship in the right direction. So this we see, number one, in terms of discussion with people, we see more about India is being talked about. That's the way it is happening. Number two, receptiveness about Indian companies, understanding more about what Indian companies can do in China is also increased.
But the challenges remain for sectors like IT, don't they? Huge.
Yeah. I think if you look at the IT sector, the playing ground is very different here. And if you also have to remember that Indian IT sector, it took about at least 20 years to be successful and to be seen as a big corporation today. All Indian companies have been in China about 10 to 12 years. So it is the sustained investment, sustained focus in building the market is the right way to go. And the playing ground is here. One aspect is that we have large state-owned enterprises and the government which is spending on technology. Indian companies have to understand how to capture that market. Of course, there are certain issues related to access and how to figure out how to get that access issue sorted out and do business there. Second aspect is the Indian IT services companies have to figure out how to be successful in non-English speaking market. We still haven't figured out that important secret of success, secret sauce for that success. And I'm sure we will figure it out in the coming years.
Well, we have Professor Rama Velmuri with us here to give us some more perspective, on this India-China relationship. How would you say then that this visit has gone off? And the other big question is that this is a time also when China's economy is slowing down. What does that mean for India?
So I think in terms of the relations itself, I mean, we have gone in less than 15 years from 2 billion to about 70 billion in bilateral trade. The potential is enormous. There is a very well-known theory in international trade that neighbors trade more with each other than countries that are geographically far away. So if you look at, for example, the US and Canada, they do about $750 billion of trade. We should be aiming for that volume of trade, and they have about 650 billion in stock of investment in each other's countries, right? So that is about 1.5 trillion is what we should be aiming for. Now, how can that happen? From India's side, I don't think we need to do anything special for China. I think we need to improve the manufacturing sector in India for ourselves first, and then companies from all over the world will come to India to manufacture in India, because we have something that China also had, which attracted so much foreign investment into China. China had a big market, so it makes sense to produce in China for the Chinese market. Very soon, and even today, it makes sense to produce in India for the Indian market. It is just that we have taken every possible step to put obstacles in the way of Indian companies and foreign companies to produce in India. Simple things like power supply is not guaranteed. Our roads, it takes many more days for goods to transit from one point to another.
So still too much red tape.
Too much red tape.
Even now.
Even now, and too much gap in infrastructure. I think in the 1 year that Prime Minister Modi has been here, he's articulated a very clear vision for where India should go. I think.
But you believe it needs to be implemented now?
It needs to be implemented, and for that to happen, political consensus has to emerge. So
you're talking about the reforms stalled at home, whether it's GST or on the land acquisition issue.
Exactly, and I think on the GST, of course, the current government itself has to blame, because when the previous government tabled the GST, they opposed it. So I think the Indian political system needs to realize that this confrontational nature of politics is something that is undermining the future of the country, and we need to align ourselves and move in one direction, as one country.
I think those are very significant points, because that's what's being debated so hotly in India. And let me take this back to Amitabh Kant before we wrap. Mr. Kant, you heard all the various views. Some in the panel feel that there continues to be a trust deficit. Others feel that there continues to be red tape. Obviously, there can't be changes, overnight. Would you say that implementation, therefore, does remain the key challenge?
Well, the challenge really is to grow at very rapid pace of 9 to 10% per annum year after year for 3 decades or more to be able to create jobs. And this requires, firstly, the vision, the perspective, and a clarity of policies, which I think the present government has brought in. I think there's a lot of action has taken place in the last 1 year in this clarity that we have to drive manufacturing.
But a lot of the reforms are stuck because of the political divide at home.
I think if you were to look at the last 1 year, I think the government has taken all the right decisions. To my mind, a lot of clear decisions have been taken. At least wrong decisions, not a single wrong decision has been taken, because in Indian democracy, setting right or wrong decision is very difficult to undo. I mean, the labor laws of 70, the land laws of 2013, they're very difficult to set them right. So at least the government is on the right direction. It's on absolutely the right course. We just need to sustain it for the next 2 to 3 years, and India will be bang there.
All right. Well, thank you very much to our panel for joining us from Shanghai tonight to give us some perspective on the Prime Minister's visit to China and whether India and China can make a success of their economic story.